Hello, everyone, and welcome to the FM show. On this week's episode, transfers. We show you how to get the most bang for your buck. We look at how to use the loan market to your advantage. And what's this we hear about never being able to get anything for free these days? We show you that's simply not true. So, let's get started. Welcome to the FM show. I'm Tony Jameson, and joining me as always is RDF Tactics and producer Steve. Now, episode 3 in our new home. So here are all the places you can find us. You can find us at the FM Show Pod on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We have a Discord server as well. And of course, the FM Show, wherever you get all your podcasts. So make sure you redirect that RSS feed to the FM Show. Give us a follow. Go on, you might as well. You might as well, right? And also, in addition to that, you can join the squad on Patreon, just like Nigel Laverick, Robert Morris, Daniel Gittos, Archie Blagger, Thomas Delaney. Don't think it's the Danish footballer Thomas Delaney, judging by their email address, but you never know. Matthew Lester, Jack Horbury, and James Dagnall. They've all signed up this week alone. So phenomenal support. Thank you very much for joining the squad. It genuinely means the world to us. We did get a question about Patreon, and it came from Darian JR on Twitter, asking, will the FM pod be Patreon only going forward? No, not at all is the answer. There'll always be a free weekly episode. However, obviously we are making bonus content that if you can afford to support us, we obviously hugely appreciate that. Patreon costs from as little as £3 a month to get access to the content. We've already got bonus episodes on there, plus the live recording we did at Insomnia Gaming Festival. Remember that, boys? Yeah, that was fun, wasn't it? That's also not available anywhere else at all. So if you want to watch that, simply go to patreon.com/the FM show pod, and then you too can become part of the FM show squad. Admin done. Gentlemen, Aaron, Steve, how are we?
Oh, I'm doing fantastically well. I've just got back from my little break in Miami, which we'll talk about later.
I think you're the only person who does a weekend break to Miami, Aaron. 8 hours to get there, 8 hours on the save, and then back again. It was brilliant. And Steve, what about yourself? I take it Florence is still lovely this time of year.
Yes. It's the seasons are changing, but it's good this time of year. I did try the Ricardo Sotil from last week's episode, which if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to it. Listen, you can pause this one. That's fine. Go back to episode 2 and then come back and this will make sense. And if you don't, it's your own fault. So Ricardo Sotil, as tried as a defensive winger, as suggested by you both on last week's episode. We were playing Crotone, who were bottom of the table that particular season. Conceded after 2 minutes. Okay. And then again, after 13 minutes, 2-0 down to the bottom of the table. But one was some set pieces and the other came down the left-hand side. So I don't think it's necessarily directly caused by having a defensive winger as my...
his problem at all, to be honest. As far as...
Or just the general chaos. So it's not a massive advert either for our search for a star feature, really, is it? In terms of what happens when you... Maybe it's just the wrong person. So that's been my week, sort of in FM land anyway.
But what happened in the rest of that match, Steve? Come on, tell
us.
What
happened in the rest of that match was I did finally change the formation, abandoned the experiment after the half an hour, got back to 2-2, and then conceded in the 89th minute, 3-2. I was venting my rage with you both on WhatsApp with the graphics, which I'll just get up now. Half-time, 2-1 Crotone. XG for Fiorentina and myself, 1.6 XG. They had 0.35. and they were 2-1 up.
Mm-hmm.
That was half an hour in when I first lost myself, should we say, for YouTube. Full time, Fiorentina, 31 shots, 11 on target. XG of 4. Crotone, 11 shots, 8 on target. XG of 0.5. 3-2 Crotone. I hate this game. Hate it.
Now, the thing is, though, you hadn't mentioned that Crotone were bottom of the league at the time when you mentioned this in your...
Yeah, we
I just
didn't know
don't-
that.
If you'd have said that, we'd have went, well, of course that's why you've lost. You're playing bottom of the league. That's how football works, right?
Yeah.
Well, my answer was finishing training next week, right? Because you're clearly getting into really, really good positions. You've got an XG of 4. You've missed several open goals at this point, right?
Yeah.
They have been clinical with every glimpse of a shot they've taken, they've scored from. That was my answer. And I said, and I will quote verbatim, I'm sure Aaron will give you a slightly different answer.
My answer is just do not check how many times the woodwork was hit. That will make things worse. Do not do that.
No. But yeah, you're right about the finishing. So the chance conversion has been added to my upcoming training schedule, as has defending set pieces. So, yes.
I believe the polite response from Aaron was some sort of general nonsense, was how he responded with that one. So, Aaron, can you tie that into anything that you've done this week? I know we mentioned quite a bit of it on Patreon, but just to give us a brief highlight of how's your passport looking this week, I suppose is probably the best.
We did leave the Dons, the Wimbledons, and then we flew over to Miami just to see what's cracking over in the MLS. And things were very, very interesting in the MLS. I thought, not knowing the rules, you can kind of just go into it. You would make mistakes, of course, but you'll kind of just catch on and then you can catch the flow a little bit and then enjoy the save. I did enjoy the save, especially the matches. The matches are pretty fun, especially I was into Miami using the database. We had Messi, so Messi doing crazy things in the MLS was pretty fun to watch. It was everything in between. I felt I needed a team. It sounds so crazy, but it feels like because I'm streaming it as well, but it felt like I generally needed a real life assistant and an interpreter was just something next to me.
An interpreter in America?
Yeah, everything. I need everything.
Interpreter rather than interpreter.
Yes, literally. So I thought that was the stream, right? That's the chat. The chat will help you with that sort of stuff. Nope, not a clue. Nobody has a clue. So with the MLS save, I feel I would need maybe just my notebook with a load of rules, and that will help me navigate through the save a little bit because I did lose the first registration. I did lose about 4 to 5 very good players. And so I was kind of at a disadvantage at the get-go. So we decided to pack up our suitcases, leave Miami and go to Romania, where we're at Dynamo Bucharesti, and we're trying to help Romania become one of the big leagues in Europe. So that's where we are towards the end of the first season with Dynamo Bucharesti.
Awesome. And we will be, once we understand it, we will do an episode on MLS because we do have a feeling that's going to be very, very popular in FM24.
100%.
Obviously with a certain Lionel Messi moving across.
I do want people to try it
Miami.
out.
So
I do want people to try it out. It feels like a complete different game. And I think that's what scared me. It's RDF knows everything about the game sort of thing. I can navigate. I can go through the season quickly, blah, 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 blah. And it's like you go to the MLS and it's just a complete different game. The way you do transfers, the way you sell players, everything's just different. So I think that scared me a little bit as well.
We can confirm that RDF does not know everything about the game, actually.
Yeah, exactly. I do not know. I do not know.
Yeah. There's this week's clip. RDF does not know everything.
If I did, my God, I wouldn't have these grey hairs, people.
Yeah. Lovely stuff. So that obviously has been our week. Previous episode, of course, we looked at pre-season, and I'm sure obviously everyone enjoyed that. We've had some lovely comments as well, which has been really, really nice to read. Steve, we actually had, in addition to the comments about the episode, we had an answer to the question that we put during that episode of, is there any nation at all where you can win the title by not finishing first?
We did indeed, and that's in reference to the gaming Holigan, not hooligan, Holigan, who sent us that email, which you can also do, the fmshowpod@gmail.com if you have longer questions or missives you want to send us here at the show. So he was the Gaming Holigan. They were talking about winning the league in Canada despite finishing second because of the playoff system there. On YouTube, where you can also comment on the show to leave your thoughts as well. Rob Latham 4737 message about the Colombian League, where finishing first is completely irrelevant. So the Colombian League.
Strap in, folks. This is going to be good.
It's La Categoría Primera A. So it's like the first category A would be a sort of like, kind of literal translation of that into English. So this format came in 2019, right? So this is relatively new for Colombian football. Okay, it's divided into two things. The first one is a Torneo Apertura. That is, and the whole season goes from January to December with breaks in between. The Torneo Apertura, this first section, is 20 games, league system, 20 teams, league system. The top 8 of those teams go into the semi-finals, which isn't knockout, which would make sense. The semi-finals are 2 groups where those 8 teams play 6 games each. Still following? Yeah? Okay. And the top 1 team of each of those 2 groups play each other in a 2-legged final. And that is the Torneo Apertura done. Then they have the Torneo Finalización, which is basically they do it all again.
Why? We've done it. We've sorted it out.
Yeah. So they do it all again. A 20-team league, top 8 semis, 2 groups, 6 games, which is the semi-finals, and then they have another playoff 2-legged final. And then they aggregate both of those competitions together across the year.
Oh my God.
And then, yeah.
I saw that, aggregate, that brings back horrible memories. I did Uruguay. I managed in Uruguay once, and I got relegated on aggregate scores. And it's the three previous season scores that are taken into account, not the actual result of that season.
That's like Argentina, though, isn't it? Because that was when was it River Plate who got relegated. Like River Plate, for those who don't know Argentinian football, like one of the biggest, the sort of Arsenal, United, Liverpool, etc. in Argentinian football. But in Argentinian football, there's only really River Plate and Boca historically. Before anyone comes at me, historically, so over 3 seasons, River Plate was so bad that they got relegated. So they did a Tony Jameson.
I can get relegated on my own without having to take 3 seasons worth of history into account. Thank you very much.
That is crazy.
But that so Rob Latham, thank you. I think is the right word for bringing the Colombian League to our attention. But that is a format.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm gonna call it now. I don't think Aaron's going to go to Colombia.
Yeah, that's not me. That's not. I try and avoid playoffs as much as I can. Even that scares me. Having a great season and it can all just crumble in a matter of game. Yeah, that scares me. That playing on top of the league, being on top of the league, smiling throughout I could just imagine me smiling throughout the whole stream. The game's so easy, and then it gets to that little bit, and then I'll just start losing, and it's like, why losing at this point? Yeah, that's not me. That league is not for me.
Just a quick one, just while this episode's on. I hope you're enjoying it, by the way. And if you are enjoying it, please consider hitting that like button. That'd be much appreciated. It shows us who's enjoying the episodes. And also, while you're there, why not consider hitting the subscribe button as well? You'll find out exactly when all the new episodes drop, so you'll never miss a beat. That, of course, pushes us up through the YouTube algorithm. It gets us in front of more eyes. And, of course, the more the podcast grows, the better it's going to be. There's also a little space for a comment, so leave us a comment. We love reading them, and we will, of course, get back to you as well. And speaking about getting back, let's get back to the episode. Okay, right. So that was obviously last week's episode. Last week we did pre-season. This week, your players are fit. They're getting used to your methods. They're demonstrating some tactical familiarity, but are these the players that are going to be pulling on your shirt all season? Chances are there's going to be 1 or 2 areas you want to strengthen. More often than not, some players you might want to move on. Now, Steve, I'm going to come to you first. I'm going to ask you to explain how you approach the first look at your squad using what I like to refer to as the eyeball test.
Feels weirdly like you're putting your eye on it. Sort of. Anyway, so the eyeball test. First of all, I'd say it sort of depends on the kind of team and kind of save you've got, right? So if you're a team that's in European football of some kind and you have a heavy fixture load, then the number of players that you need and the depth of that quality is one conversation. I broadly, as a guideline, would say 2 players per position that you'd be happy enough to play with. Because at that level, if you're talking Europa League or Champions League football in Europe, your transfer budget probably means, and your wage budget probably means that you can afford to have that deeper squad. If you're taking over a team that hasn't got European football and it is therefore the budget implications of that mean that that squad can then be thinner. I would then say across the back 4, for example, I'd have 6 or 7 players that I'm happy with from a first team point of view. And I would just have that and like have a bit of versatility so I can move players around or fill the squad in with youth players, which we'll come on to in a second. So those are the sort of different ways of looking at it. In terms of the eyeball test, what I tend to use is the squad depth, which is in your squad section on the left-hand side. At the top, if you look at those little top sections, the rummage around that section of the game, the squad depth is quite a useful way of visualizing the depth that you have in your squad. Funnily enough.
Exactly that. And so your assistant, you've got a few options. Your assistant manager or your head of youth development, whoever it is, will kind of. So we've got a 4-2-3-1 set up on the screen for those who are watching. And it's kind of just ranking players in certain positions. So, for example, left back, my head of youth, Per Saka, thinks Zinchenko's the best left back. Then below him, he's got Saka there, he's got Tomiyasu, he's got Kieran Tierney, who's actually in 4th spot. Many of us would say Zinchenko Tierney, but apparently Tierney is in 4th spot. Now, already, just like that, I find something intriguing. I've seen Saka, is Dave saying Saka's the best, second best left back. For me, Saka's going to be attacker. Is left back a possible area for me to improve if the player that I thought is actually the 4th option for our assistant manager? But also in this little section here, you can find some hidden gems. So on the right-hand side, you've got filter. And this is when you can start to include your under 21 squad and your under 18 squad. And also on this page, you can sort the team out by potential ability. So you might know who's the best players in your team, but you might want to know who potentially could take a place. So, for example, at Arsenal, again, we've got Walters, who is potentially a very decent both left and right back. In the middle, we've got Maldini, Kukuri. Again, these are players that you might not be familiar with, but you can start to get familiar with and possibly save you a few bucks because you might not now need to sign that fullback or that centre-back because you've got a young player ready for that spot.
And that is an episode in the future as well, planning for the future, of course, because that's the thing. Like, you know, you look at that squad planner, which is a great tool, by the way, now to put in the squad overview report. Fantastic. I use that a lot to see, because for me, like when I do the eyeball test, I refer to the eyeball test as I get my squad up straight away, first team squad, and I go through position by position, player by player, have a quick click on them. And I'll have a quick little look at their attributes. And if they look like what they should be for that division, they get a tick or a little question mark. If they look like they're a bit weaker, they get a big cross, right? And then I do old school pens and paper. That's how I plan out. I have to write everything down and I go, right, you're not going to play. You might be okay. We might not need to replace you straight away. You're not my sort of number one focus right now. Or a tick is, yes, this person definitely stays. Okay. Now, from that, of course, then looking at what you've just done there with the squad report, that can back up your theory. Saka being a really surprising left back. What I like to go to is the league comparison screen, which we showed last week, to show, well, actually, my players might not be as bad as I thought, or maybe they're better than I thought they are, or maybe actually they're worse than I thought. And that's really worrying.
So again, to find this page on the left hand side, you got squad planner. Click on squad planner, and then at the top slightly you got report, you got your assistant report, and then below that you've got comparison. And on this page, all it's doing is finding the averages of the attributes, or it's anything actually. You can find your average age, the average height. Again, if your recruitment plan is to buy players 6 foot and no less than that, you can actually compare your height to the rest of the league. And of course, you know, when you're signing players, make sure he's 6 foot, make sure he's 6 foot. But is 6 foot actually the tallest in the league? Maybe not. It could be 6'1", it could be 6'2". So make sure you keep your eyes on the comparison page. But also in this area, you can find sort of weaknesses and strengths in your side. What I like to do, first thing, I go straight to my mentals. I'll actually remove the goalkeeper. So you've got little boxes. You can show only goalkeepers, only defenders, only midfielders, only strikers, or you can have them all involved, or you can take some out. I take the goalkeeper out. I just focus on defenders, midfielders, and strikers, look at the mental attributes and see where I am. As a squad, on this page here, we're fairly low with leadership. We're below average, and we're also below average when it comes to positioning. If I'm losing or conceding goals on the counter-attack, I mean, this page kind of tells me why and where I can improve as a team.
And also, to wrap all this in terms of the context of transfers too, looking at the squad depth, looking at the analysis for the rest of the league that Aaron spoke to there, I look at that with a view of who I sell.
Yes.
So, like I said, with a European team in European football, 2 players per position, some squads will be bloated. If you want even thinner squad for no European football in that first season, again, might even still be bloated for your purposes, or the resources, you might have a really good number of centre backs or right backs, and the financial resources within those players, and kind of describe them like they're raw materials, but they kind of are. You know, if you've got money in players and in areas that you kind of want to shift over. A good example from my Fiorentina save recently was I had quite a lot of good advanced playmakers. So I sold one for like 40 million, a guy called Andre Anderson, but to Juventus. So it did sting a little bit because of the rivalry between them and Fiorentina. But I used that money to buy a striker. So reallocated that financial resource.
Exactly, yeah.
To elsewhere in the squad.
Well, we mentioned that. We mentioned that on last week's episode when I sold my star player on transfer deadline day. The thinking behind that was to reallocate those funds because I had someone else who could slot in that position, and I thought that we sacrificed him for the greater good in that sense. So you're right.
Yeah.
I can get 2 players and strengthen 2 positions for one player who was theoretically should have been great, but wasn't actually good enough. He wasn't justifying his wages and all that sort of stuff. Now, the interesting part of all this, of course, is we're talking about European football and we're talking about the Premier League, and I'm feeling very lonely over here, to be honest. Talking about wages, talking about squad depth. I mean, like I'll be lucky if I've got 1 player for each position on my squads. Now, how I like to approach it is, because obviously we can't plan for wonder kids and youth prospects. Like, I don't mind putting youth players in, but I do worry that if we lose a few games, that mentally that can hurt them and it can hurt their development a little bit. I like to go for a few more experienced heads. I think try and get like some 32-year-olds, 33-year-olds, 34-year-olds. Some says a 38-year-old. That's what I go for, right? get them in there, but they'll be great. They'll see us through. Their legs are gone, but it doesn't really matter. And in terms of wages, again, some of the players that I've been managing are on no contract. They literally don't get paid to play. They're maybe a part-time contract. They're earning £100 on a part-time basis. Yeah. Maybe I have to put all my money into one player to fund them until the end of the season, to hope that gets me either a promotion or keeps me away from relegation. And those little things that I have to think about means that when it comes to the end of the season, my team can just be ripped apart again, because those players are out of contract after 1 year. Like, I can't plan 3, 4, 5 years in advance, not necessarily because of the fact that I inevitably get sacked. It's more about the fact that we financially can't commit to having those players there for more than 1 season. So my transfer strategy is going to be very, very different to I'm guessing, quite a lot of your strategies here. Now, we will, of course, start looking at how to bring players in. Now, search filter is probably the easiest, most accessible way. I think if you're brand new to the game, you can literally search by player name, by club, by position. You can look via attributes. You can even look via media description, by the way, if you want to find wonder kids. There's a little cheeky tip for you. Aaron, you've got the search filter up there now. Explain to me how you use this. We've got a live show coming up on Monday, the 6th of November in Nottingham at the Canal House. It's part of the Nottingham Comedy Festival. If you're interested in coming to see the FM show live, seeing myself, seeing producer Steve, seeing RDF Tactics in person, then there's a ticket link in the description below. The tickets are priced at £5. Come and see the show. Come and hang out afterwards. We'll do a bit of a meet and greet. We'll do a bit of a chat. We'll talk FM. Bring your stories. Bring Matt Doherty if you can. But yeah, Monday the 6th of November, the Canal House in Nottingham, £5. Ticket link in the description below. Get your tickets. Come and hang out. It's going to be fantastic.
So on the left-hand side, we've got scouting. Make sure you click scouting. And then on the top, you've got overview, scouting center, recruitment focus, but we're interested in the player search. So we're going to go for players and players in range. And this is going to find, so you've got your own database, your own scouting range where you can have World, Europe, UK, but we don't really want to focus with that. We want to focus on a new search. So let's say we're looking for a left winger. You can quite simply just press a left winger, or if you're looking for a striker, you can quite simply just filter out all the strikers in the player search. On this page, you can also find all your transfer listed players, or you can search for players that are not transfer listed. Make sure you stay away for those players that are not needed. Loan status as well. Again, if you're looking for a loan, you could just quickly search for a player that's available on loan, or one of my personal favorites, the contract status, where you're looking at players that have just got a year on their contract, maybe 6 months on their contract, which is very handy when it comes to December times. You can agree on a pre-contract, or you can just simply look for free transfers by looking at unattached or expired.
Making a little note of that. Good. Free
Yeah,
transfers.
right.
Excellent. Yeah. We'll get on to free transfers in a little bit. Aaron, just there's one quick little bit that I really, really like on this screen as well. If you go back to the list, the sort of the actual the searchable list. So say we've clicked on a position. So you can click on whatever position you want, click search, and then that will show us all the players that are within that range. Now, along the top, you've got a little tick that says transfer, don't you? And then you've got a little list that says loan.
Yes.
Okay. So on that, you can toggle that says interested, very interested, dubious. So that can filter out again as to how likely those players are to actually want to sign for you. So there might be all these players available to go, oh, that's great. And they can even be transfer listed, but it still doesn't necessarily mean they want to sign for you.
Exactly. You got to remember, a lot of these players as well, there's just opinions from your director of football. So here it says players interested in. It's saying that Lukaku's interested in me. I could ask his agent in the game as well. But that's what my assistant is telling me. Now, if I use doubtful, I'm going to start to get some different players. And that's basically the opinion. He's not quite sure if he's interested or if he's not. And it's down to me then to inquire. And Football Manager have done a great thing by adding the agent availability, where you can actually ask the agent. You can go straight to the agent and ask about his availability, where you don't have to mess about with doing your transfer and then finding out he's not interested. Actually, the agent will tell you from day one.
Okay. And you mentioned there briefly as well about looking for recommendations. I mean, I guess our director of football is a good option of a recommendation as well. Some clubs have them, some clubs don't. Some clubs' director of football is just the assistant manager. But if we wanted to, again, find players on a high level, but we can actually be a bit more specific now with the director of football, Aaron, yeah?
Yeah, so on the left-hand side again, if you go to transfers, and then you've got director of football at the top. So you're already in your transfer center. At the top, you go to director of football and then transfer targets. Here, you can actually request your director of football for suggestions. You click that, and it's a similar page in that you can actually select the positions. You can go to a left back or a left wing back, a right-sided attacking forward, and you can just select suggest, and he will give you a list. But you also have the option of looking for the transfer, a loan, players coming towards the end of their contract, or again, our favorite, free transfers.
Free transfers are our favourites. And I'm going to give you one more before I bring Stephen on this one, because this is the one that I know you want to show us. Go back to that search filter, because obviously, we've gone for a very, very sort of like entry level. You can search by position, you can search by attribute, you can search by contract status, place of birth, all those good stuff.
Yes.
Show us a few things you can do as well. Like maybe if you want to like show off your your statistical understanding, Aaron.
I love numbers. So on the left again, you go to scouting, and we're going back to the same page, players in range, and then we're at our player search. Football Manager 23 have done a great thing introducing a lot more stats, a lot more numbers. And for me, so if I'm looking for a striker, for an example, I can go to this player search, the same page where we're looking for positions like a left winger. So I will just put a striker, for an example, and you can add your own conditions, homegrown status, name, nationality, transfer value. Down at the bottom here, we have stats, chalkboard, and then it goes off to another little menu where you can look for aerial challenges, crosses, mistakes, movements. We are looking for a striker. So you can go for shots. And then here you can actually go and filter out players by shots per ratio, goals per shot ratio percentage, shots on target, that sort of thing, XG. That for me is how I find a striker currently on form. A lot of strikers, well, every striker has a profile with attributes, but sometimes a player isn't consistent or they're not on form. And this is one way of finding a player on form. A very, very simple way is actually just go into stats. So add a condition, stats general, and then look for average rating. For me, at least 7, and then boom, we've got a player filter of players that are averaging and rating of 7 in their games, players that are on form.
Love that as a stat. That's a fantastic little cheeky bit of nugget of information. Because I'll be honest, I am starting to use numbers a lot more. Steve, we're going to come now to you to look at the data hub, which kind of is a lovely sort of a companion, I suppose, really, to Aaron's search filter there, which I didn't know about, by the way. That's a nice little handy tip. Thank you for that. If I'm going to use the data hub as well, Steve, as another recruitment tool, of course, recruitment is a wider subject that we will, of course, address more, but we are looking specifically at transfers here. How would you use the data hub to use this as free scouting, right?
This is it, exactly that. Free scouting, which especially at certain levels is more beneficial than others. And this is sort of what's great with Manager 2 is that like you have different sections of the game aren't necessarily obviously useful for other parts of it, but we're sort of trying to weave together here bits that will help. So you go to the data hub, and this is better really probably most effective from like a January window onwards, because you have the data from the league that you're in. Because another nice tip within this that Data Hub is relevant to is that I would always try and buy within your league if you can, because the players are settled in the country, you know, they can play from a registration point of view, they're probably familiar or more familiar with the language, all these sort of things. So that, you know, past the least resistance, that's a good way of looking. And also, you get a chance to look at them because you play them twice in the season, for example. You can also get their stats for free in the Data Hub, as we're saying. So if you go to the Data Hub on your left-hand side, you go to Player, and then Player Analytics come up. You've got all your positions. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, you want to get a look at goalkeepers. You go to your goalkeepers, and you can compare your keeper currently to other keepers in the division. And it's particularly good if you kind of like how I do, basically ransack the teams, smaller teams in the division of their best players. So you can look at your keepers and go, okay, my keeper. So the basic goalkeepers graphic, for example, has your. Now I always get this wrong. Which axis is it? If you're a graphs man, y-axis, x-axis. Your horizontal axis says one thing. Your vertical axis says another. Okay. And generally speaking, with these graphs, the best combination is in the top right-hand corner of the square. So that's kind of how I like to look at it, you know. So you can look there and I can see that actually when it comes to basic goalkeeping analytics in terms of lots of saves and saving the most shots, there's a guy, Volker Fariñez, who's a Venezuelan keeper who I also sold previously, which is a bit awkward, but hey, when you've got 8 seasons, this starts to happen. And I can see that actually he's at Atalanta. He's not at one of the bigger teams, but in terms of basic shot stopping, he's the best in a division. And because of his contract status, I'm just looking at now, and his age, and the fact he's at Atalanta rather than Inter or AC or insert bigger club in your division, he's a bit more gettable. And so that is straight away. I haven't scouted him for years. There's other players in there which I haven't scouted, where it's just a bit like the search filter. It's just another angle through which to look at players to get those marginal gains, to get a successful transfer strategy.
It's also handy as well in looking at your own players, because there might well be a player that you look at and you go, I'm getting rid of him. He just doesn't look right for me. But then you look at the data hub and he's doing everything that you want him to be doing. And you're like, he's undroppable. He's literally undroppable. He doesn't look like he should be doing the job, but my word, he's putting a shift in.
Yeah.
And we've all seen it. Players, you go, this guy's an absolute superstar. And you look at his data hub and you go, does he even turn up for matches? Like, what's he doing? And so those little things, and again, Data Hub, again, another episode waiting to happen. That will be a great way of looking at those players. And again, as you say, marginal gains is what it's all about, Steve. Yeah. But we've done our scouting. We've done our identifying our player. We've now worked out this is the guy we're going to go for. How do you do it, Aaron? do you take a big bag of cash and pay it off on a wanna, or do you spread it using various apps that will allow you to spread payments over a certain amount of months?
We should be clear. This is not real life financial advice. To be clear,
this is not. Yes, of course. Yeah, I should say that. So yeah. Also, none of these are any. We have no affiliation with any of those. So do you go like bang? Let's pay it all off in once, or do you spread those payments to maybe make your budget go a bit further?
Yes, I'm a bit old school with it. So like in the old FMs, you didn't really have that option of having so many installments and stuff. I kind of like, oh, he's worth 5 million, let's offer 10 million sort of thing. But obviously now, now the agent gives you kind of
I need to do business with you. This house is worth this. I'll give you 4 times its value. Hey.
Is that just me? Is that that's how I used to play that old Football Managers?
Oh,
2 million, 4 million then sort of thing. Now the agent kind of gives you a valuation. And again, it's just similar. If it's like 5 million, I'm not there trying to squeeze it because sometimes it can harm you in the future. So let's say like I've done all of these installments on players and we've qualified for Europe, and now we need to again buy better players, but now my transfer budget is low because of all of these installments that we're paying off. Sometimes it can kind of bite you as well. So I kind of watch out for it. If it's 100 million player, which we actually did for the very first time, I'm using those installments and I'm using every single installment. So that means after league appearances, after international appearances, minimum league goals. Generally though, I do like to just put the money up front or installments, and I will have a 60 monthly installment, 4 installments, and I will just add a little bit there. So if a player is worth 10 million, I will bid maybe 7 million straight up front, and then I'll do 3 million worth installments is how I would do it.
That seems sensible. Steve, are you like that as well, or do you?
Yeah, because I think the big thing, the reason that this is, it sort of varies on transfers really. Sometimes, it's the sort of big briefcase of cash and let's just get this thing done. And if it's a couple of million over, you know that's the guy you want. If you've got the money to afford, you don't necessarily want to go back and forth with negotiations. In those instances, it's just here's the cash, let's go. Another top tip, generally speaking, in the negotiation thing is the suggest terms versus making the offer. Because you make the offer, you've got to wait a couple of days. You don't know what the response will be. You lose time. If you suggest terms, you can go back and forth, and between you and the other club, come to a deal. So that's another nice tip to do. Generally, as a fundamental guideline, I will use the installments, and I'll do it because you can. Let's say it's a £30 million player that the value is there for. If you do 15 up front, it's only 15 that comes out of that window. It means you can do more in the window that you're in. I like to incentivize it too. So I'll do things like I'll add 1 million or 2 million every 20 league appearances or every 10 goals, because that might end up going beyond the value of the players they are now. However, if a guy's scored me 10 goals, that's probably worth more than £1 million or £2 million. They're clearly doing well. So fine. Ditto if they've done 20 and then another 20 appearances, extra money, they're clearly being used and doing well. So you might end up with a greater value incentivized than the player is currently worth, especially if you're going for younger players. But those installments mean that those clauses mean that they've outperformed what you're expecting. So, great.
Yeah, win-win.
Yeah, it is win-win, but then you do realise that there are moments when you go, we had more money than that, and you go, oh yeah, he scored 30 goals. Like, he just like, you know what? It is a thing. Like, you can forget those little incentivized clauses that do add on. Like, potentially the sell-on clause as well. I know it's a very, very popular one on the game as well, where if you are trying to spread those payments, it feels a lot like the clubs instantly come back with, okay, but 30% of the sell-on fee. And you're like, actually, if he does well, we get a lot less money now. So again, you've got to try and think, okay, can I afford to allow 30% of that transfer to go back? And again, remember to work out exactly what they are, whether it's 30% of the profit or 30% of the transfer itself. Those two are two very, very, very different things that could, of course, see you in slightly different issues and slightly different outcomes going forward. So I think transfers we've kind of covered, I would say now. I mean, as with all aspects of the game, we haven't covered everything. So do get in touch if there's a bit where you go, can I have a bit more clarity on this? can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah.
How's about a bit more here? Obviously, do get in touch. But I think for today's show, for transfers, I'm going to call that, and that's where we are. Agreed?
Agreed.
Yeah.
I think specifically for you're starting a new save.
Yeah.
This is all these episodes where we are at the moment. This is what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're starting a new save. Here are some bits and transfers, etc., that might be useful.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So we're asking you to get in touch because you do get in touch. People have contacted us via Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, of course, Discord as well. The links for all those are in the description of the show. Search the FM Show Pod for all of our podcast platforms. And of course, emails come to the FM Show Pod at gmail.com. That is the FM Show Pod at gmail.com. And Steve is in charge of going through that mailbag. So I've been looking for some of our comments through various platforms, including comments on Spotify, which is quite nice. Spotify allows you to have some comments. We got one from Elijah that says here, glad to have this back. I'm always looking for inspiration for ways to approach this wonderful game. So appreciate you, Elijah. Very kind. Golden Footy has also responded with great episode. Very happy you're back. Thank you very much. Some ego stroking this week, isn't it?
Oh.
Really. Oh,
Yes.
yes. And you know what? The ego stroking doesn't end there. On YouTube as well. The Pulse Horn. I read it as Pulse Horn at first and then realized that the L and the E are the wrong way around. So the Pulse Horn on YouTube. Love that you are back. Heart emoji. Oh, the toll is paid. Looking forward to a new season. Would love an episode about recruitment tips and tricks. Now, we've certainly led into that, and there will absolutely be a recruitment episode going forward. Have tried too many times that I give my scouts a detailed but reasonable assignment. They then go out into the wild. They're away for 14 days and come back with absolutely nothing. Still much to learn. You know what? Join the club. I think we're all pretty much the same.
Feel your pain there.
Aaron, what have you found in Discord?
We've got an American in Wakefield. Wake me up before you go.
Sorry, that's my doing.
I was trying to walk into that with a straight face, and I was like, "Yeah, this is no way that's happening."
Wakefield me up before you go.
Yes, yes, banging tune. Ian CW in the Discord. Hey all, hello. Wanted to tell you about my save with Wakefield. Now I can't. Wakefield, go, AFC. This is a save that I started on FM22, but decided to manually transfer to FM23 so I could keep playing it. Took forever and needed the game editor to make it happen. The goal with this save is to keep it as realistic as possible by using the Masterman skin, absolute banging skin. It hides all the attributes and it makes you rely on the data and focusing on never gamifying or exploiting things in any way. I do still use the game editor for cosmetic reasons, such as changing awful hairstyles. And I also use the Nugent face pack and add a unique face. This is a fantastic message. And add a unique face for each of my own players. That is very time consuming. Basically, the goal is to make it as immersive as possible. I'm immersed. Wakefield AFC is in the 10th division of England, the 10th division of England in real life, and is in the biggest city in the UK without a pro club. Wow. This makes it essentially the most intense yet plausible road to glory imaginable. I'm American, but we'll be visiting Wakefield this fall, and I'm going to a game very excited. Currently in my save, we have been able to rely on a few season surges to avoid relegation from the Premier League. My fictional son now manages the club as we're in the year 2070, meaning my manager is too old for the thrills of management. An absolute banging message, Ian. Thank you for that. And I hope 2071 is going to be a great year for your son.
Yeah, the bit I like most about that message is a sentence that I don't think has ever been said by anybody ever. I am American, but will be visiting Wakefield this fall. And excited about it. And it turned out we've had a bit of back and forth in Discord, and there is a rhubarb museum and a mining museum. So there you go, rhubarb pie and mining. So
what
lovely.
What
you possibly want. Wow. We're all heading to Wakefield, so appreciate that, Ian.
Nice to see as well that his son is, taking over the management from him, so he won't be going solo.
Oh, it's good. It's good.
It's a Jam reference. Jam? Wham! Oh my god!
Wow!
It's a Wham reference. Thank you.
Wow!
Excellent message there on Discord, Ian. Thank you very much. I was trying to think, how the hell am I going to get "Wake Me Up Before You Go" lyrics in off the back of this message, but there we go. Did it.
Yeah.
Anyway, another message on Discord, this time from Nitin Kalair. Thank you very much for getting in touch. Nitan, sorry. Nitan's been playing FM since CM3. There we
Legit.
go.
Wow!
Legit.
They're a Man United fan who never plays at United, as we discussed on previous episodes, the save episode, in fact, the issue sometimes with playing the team you support. Normally they go for Coventry City. For the first time, they're doing a journey person save. Turns out that the Brazilian third division is Nitan's jam, because as we were discussing a bit earlier in terms of transfers, they love doing cheap/free deals. Well, I hope the tips that we gave you earlier were helpful, Nitan. So they're currently at OES in Brazil after 18 months, and after 18 months of mediocrity, everything has started to click. That's interesting. 18 months of, I'm hoping, game save. 18 months of
Actual real life
a year and a half of my
God.
life. They got promoted from the third division, and we've speaking about weird South American formats. The third division format in Brazil is apparently also odd. Playing some wonderful football, but just lost their main striker, Rodrigo Rodriguez, to a club in Chile. The contract runs out for Nitan in December, so they're unsure if they're going to sign a new contract or just move on. Well, the kind of journey person save does imply that moving on is part of it, Nitan. So, either way, as we said, Nitan's played since CM3, so it's been there a long time, but it's probably the most fun I've had with FM in years. That's a lovely message because it illustrates too that sometimes you come back and forth and the passion for the game comes up and down over our lives, doesn't it? So thank you, Nitan.
Absolutely, and definitely trying something new. And Brazil is crazy. There's a lot of craziness in Brazil. We'll talk about that in a future episode. Next up, Archie Blaga. Morning all. Oops, just managed to post that rather than starting a new line. So a bit of Discord etiquette, Archie. Come on, you can get this one worked out. But you know what? I'm going to let you off because you're from the northeast of England, so that's all fine. Playing FM since the days of the ZX Spectrum.
Ooh,
technically, so it's not. Well, there you go. However, I played champ manager since the priority man on the green box and FM since. Generally play as Sunderland. Congratulations. Bringing them success that they never achieve in reality. However, this year, thanks to the lads at the FM Show Pod, I started a journey person save for the first time. Much fun was had, but I still ended up at Sunderland.
Sunderland is inevitable.
Isn't it just happens. It just approaches you. Here we are. So that's Archie. Brilliant. Appreciate that, Archie. Fat Nige has also sent a message in via Discord as well. Just watched the Patreon video episode. Thank you very much, Nige. Definitely getting back into the swing. So there you go. We've obviously been away for a little bit. Watching TJ and RDF interact while discussing their saves. My thoughts were, could they do a brilliant being the operative word here, brilliant collaborative Twitch save in which they were both joint managers of the team, the disagreements between Tony, Aaron, and the chat over the tactical directions and the way forward would be epic. Steve, you can be the unofficial umpire in this.
Yeah, absolutely not. I cannot think of a more tactically divergent combination of people as well. That would. What a mess! What a Frankenstein's monster that team would be.
Yeah, Aaron, I found you a 6'5" guy. We're only playing tick-tack and He's 6'5".
What's the first touch like?
Damn it, doesn't mean 6'5".
First what?
It would be pretty insane.
Very entertaining, though.
To be fair, though, tactically, I'm trying to do something similar where I've picked a team. They're not really, they're not they don't have the team, the quality to do well, but I really want to play Gegenpress. So what I've did is found Gegenpress, which plays a 4-2-4, and then also a direct counter-attack, which plays a 4-4-2, and I've basically just merged the two tactics. So we've got a high line with a low defensive line. The press is like somewhere in the middle. There's no counter-press, but we're counter-attacking. Yeah, it's just a bit crazy at the moment.
And then just fill the team with the Land of Giants. What could possibly go wrong?
So we've also got an email from Tom Barrett. Hi, all. Love the previous iteration of the show and glad to have found a new one is just as good. Oh, thank you, Tom. A few questions for you, if you could be so kind. Yes, we are. Do you have or remember any players that bring you out in cold sweats? Because no matter what you do or did, they always go past you. FM trauma for me includes Van Hooijdonk on Championship Manager 96-97, Kevin Phillips when it was him and Quinn up front, and Adebayo when he was at Arsenal. More recently, Rashford just terrorizes my defenses, even if Manchester United are doing rubbish in game. Is there any striker that, or any player that just magically scores against you all the time?
Liverpool. Team just doesn't matter when. Like 2045, Liverpool still.
Liverpool.
There was a time when I couldn't beat AC Milan. It literally 5 seasons I couldn't beat them in the cup, in the league, etc. And then I bought all their players and then did. So
for me, it just has to be Callum Wilson. That guy has haunted me for many, many FMs. Still does. No matter what league, no matter his age, the guy could have acceleration 5-5 and he'll still score a hat trick. Still score that hat trick.
Mm-hmm.
We also have a second question. We also do have a second question. Does anyone else's game have one nation mainly producing the world's wonder kids? Mine always seems to be Serbia.
Yeah, Serbia is a good shout. Croatia is always a good shout as well. Lots of them on my game from Croatia.
I get a lot of Brazil and Argentina, which feels quite, usual. But yeah, South America.
I get Colombia. And Egypt as well. And the last question, has anyone had a chairman person completely ruin a game for them? I once had many moons ago in which I was Liverpool and won pretty much everything, got a new chairman, and they wanted the big name signings, which I didn't do as he planned his squad, he planned his squad and knew who he wanted. So he took matters into his own hands, signed Jan Kromkamp back from PSV for something stupid like 60 million, taking all of his funds. Needless to say, he went straight into my youth team and never saw the light of day as his stats weren't amazing, but his performances for his previous club were atrocious. Wow.
Yeah, so this has nearly happened to me. It nearly ruined. There will come a day when my Fiorentina save ends and it will crush me. Let's be honest.
No.
Well, yeah, maybe not my choice, but what this nearly happened where the chairman, which IRL is still Rocco Commisso for Fiorentina on my save because I've been doing it so relatively long, retired, kind of sold the club, and Rocco and I feel like we had a sort of similar understanding in terms of like we were there for the building the team, for making Fiorentina, etc. And the finances, whatever. Red. What is this minus thing in the spreadsheet? Don't worry about that.
Financial issues in Italy, surely not, Steve. No.
Specifically in Football Manager, to be absolutely clear.
Absolutely.
But so new broom comes in. I think it must have been a regen name for the chairman. I'm not remembering his name. Basically, comes in, looks at the spreadsheet, goes, we need to work within our budget. So,
oh no,
and also there was just a mismatch in terms of like, we want to sign famous old players. And it's like, that's not how this club has become successful, my friend. And, but we also don't want to give you any budget to do that. So it was a proper like, this isn't going to work, but I've made it work still. And I'm very happy in the new regime.
Yeah, I do enjoy those little curveballs though, because sometimes you can get, I don't know, comfortable in a save and then now you've got a challenge on your hands because the game has just done something. It's just turned your save upside down.
That's true.
Absolutely. So, one more email. Steve, I shall let you take this one.
Yeah, I should have carried on talking there, shouldn't I?
Hey, yeah, that's fine. Don't worry. I've got you.
It's not as if I've got a script in front of me at all. Anyway, so as Tony rightly says, we have one more email, and it's from Jamie Cook, and it's talking about new saves, which obviously we spoke about 2 episodes back, which you can go find on the YouTube channel, or you can go scroll down that feed, FM Show Pod, wherever you get your podcast, to listen to it if you have not yet. Then do that, please. Thank you. Okay, Jamie says, "Hi, gents. I've started a Hellas Verona save early this year because I'm a Serie A fanboy. Wanted a bit of a challenge. Well, welcome, Jamie. Welcome. Got stuck in very quickly. Realised that a very defensive 5-3-2 was the only way going to keep Hellas Verona up in Serie A. They are one of those teams at the moment that do yo-yo a bit between those two divisions, Serie A and Serie B. In the first couple of seasons, came 14th and 12th, which is grand, for Hellas and the budget that they have. And in that time, also started to lay the foundations with some shrewd signings, including Andreas Schelderup, Lorenzo Luca, which is a bit, I'm sure, like those, certainly in FM22. I'm not sure how much he is transferred over into FM23, but Lorenzo Luca was top tier wonder kid to buy. Big old centre forward, ball into the box, headers,
goals,
lovely goals. Lorenzo Luca, Rooney, Bargi, all came in seasons 1 through 3 on good fees, aided by selling both even Illich, who I also bought on my Fiorentina save and has been the fulcrum of my midfield for about 5 seasons. 6 million, I think he was. Lovely. And then Jamie also sold Diego Coppola. So for 39 million, 60 million, respectively, getting that money in. One of the things we didn't really touch on, which is another good thing for a deeper thing, but in transfers, do not be afraid to sell your darlings. If you've got a star player, get him as long a contract as you can, but make peace with the fact that you can get 60, 70 million, etc. That can transform your side, as Jamie attests to there. The season's carried on. 5th in season 3, Europa League semi-final season 4, 6th in that season. Season 5, the Coppa Italia. This is like building a statue in front of the ground sort of stuff here, isn't it? They're still built up to season 6. Where they were now as a reputation and money meant they could get in some experience. Nelson Semedo, currently at Wolves, IRL, former Barcelona, Portuguese fullback. And Neymar at Hellas Verona.
Wow.
Building a brilliant relationship with Luca. That's a proper tall man, short man, old school sort of forward line, isn't it? So in that season 6, they won Super Cup. And on the final day, now this, I do not, even in FM, I don't see happen that often. On the final day in the Scudetto title race, they were level on points with AC Milan, which took us to a playoff for the title. A playoff. That means everything has to be level. Points can't separate, goal difference can't separate, versus record can't separate.
Yikes.
Hellas Verona took an early lead, but lost 3-1 in the Scudetto playoff final, losing to Milan, making it even worse. They'd sold Schelderup to Milan at the start of that season, and obviously who scores? Obviously. This game. Anyway, James currently on season 7, and it's December 2028 in the game. 3rd in Serie A, Champions League campaign, still in the Coppa Italia. This has been a truly wonderful save, showing no signs of getting bored with. They're going to Italy in real life, Jamie and his wife, hoping to pop over to Verona to try and see them too, which is the sort of, the blurring of the lines between our Football Manager save and how it can make us fall in love with the place in the real world. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this little story and trip to fair Verona. Hope you enjoyed it. If you fancy reading it out on the show, that would be great. Keep up the good work, gents. From Jamie. Well, there you go, Jamie. That is your email read. Thank you very much for sending that in, and I hope you enjoy your trip to Italy whenever that is.
Absolutely, and make sure you tweet us a picture of you outside the stadium. Yes. Find basically trying to find out where your statue is, because I think you deserve one at this point. So appreciate everyone, of course, who has got in touch. If you would like your email read by the team and then potentially even read out on the show, send it through to us at thefmshowpod@gmail.com. That is, of course, thefmshowpod@gmail.com. You can follow us on all the social medias, which is the FM Show Pod, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Obviously, as we've said before, join the Discord server as well. And of course, make sure your podcast RSS feed is set to the FM Show, wherever you get your podcasts. Well, that was episode 3 of the FM Show, hosted by myself, Tony Jameson. My co-host is Aaron Falloon, aka RDF Tactics. Our producer is producer Steve Hankey. Take care, stay safe. We'll see you next time.